Yes, working my inner quads. Now I bring my feet together and I work my outer quads. Yes, the variation in the squat, and you see lots of people doing it different ways. And sometimes you will hear people or see people doing squats with varying foot positions. And sometimes they will say that if I take my feet out or point my toes out or take my feet more apart, that's going to work more of the inner quad in here, my vastus medialis. And if I want to work more the outer quad, your vastus lateralis, if you look at it from an anatomical point of view, bring your feet close together and you'll be working your outer quad or your vastus lateralis. So let's have a look at this from an anatomical and a scientific point of view. As you know, there's four muscles of the quadriceps, the rectus femoris, which is the big one over the top, the one on the inside, your vastus medialis, one on the outside, the vastus lateralis, the one in the middle, which sits underneath your rectus femoris, means your vastus intermedius. So what happens to those muscles when you vary your foot position or your leg position? Now if I take my feet externally or laterally rotated, I'm rotating the femur laterally about the acetabulum or the hip joint. If I take my feet wider, I'm now abducting my hip joint or abducting my femur. So how does that affect the vastus medialis and the lateralis, which is technically the inner quad and the outer quad? Now there's no such thing as inner and outer quad, there's vastus medialis and vastus lateralis. So considering that the vastus medialis and vastus lateralis actually originates on the femur and inserts into the tibia tuberosity via the patella, and it doesn't go across the hip joint. So if I vary my hip joint by laterally rotating it, it makes no difference to those muscles because those muscles don't go across the hip joint. If I take my legs wider in an abducted position, it won't make any difference to those muscles because those muscles don't go across the hip joint because they originate on your femur. So it's almost like if I do biceps this way, or this way, it's not going to make any difference because those muscles don't go across that rotating joint. So when it comes to vastus medialis, lateralis, doing your feet closer, wider, laterally rotated, medially rotated, upside down, in a handstand, it doesn't make any difference because those muscles don't even go across the hip joint. So the difference is zero. And that was backed up by some research by the name of Signor back in the 90s when he actually plugged up the vastus medialis and lateralis to an EMG, electromyographic machine that measures muscle activation, and he looked at positioning of the foot doing squats and positioning of the foot doing leg extension, whether you turn your feet in or your feet out. It didn't make any difference when it comes to contribution of muscle activation towards the movement. What it could do if you take your feet wider, because you're abducting your hip, you're going to be stretching your adductors longus, brevis and magnus. So going wider, you're going to get a bit more of a pre-stretch on these muscles on the inside, make them work a little bit harder, I suppose, because now you're abducting, therefore you're going to be stimulating your adductors a little bit more. But understanding your abductors and adductors are mostly there to align your hip and your knee so your extenders and flexors can work far more effectively. So what is the solution? Pick the position that is more functional, that is more comfortable, where you can lift the heaviest load, so you're going to get the heaviest force production, so you can maximize muscle recruitment and muscle activation to give you the best result. Because if you maximize muscle activation through heavy load, through a good strong position, you're going to activate all the muscles, your inner and your outer, your vastus medialis, your vastus lateralis, your vastus intermedius, and your rectus femoris to their greatest potential, and the genetics will take care of the shape, but at least you've got to get maximal muscle activation. So stop playing around with changing in angles and foot positions, because many times it actually will decrease the efficiency and effectiveness of the exercise because you put yourself in a biomechanically weaker position because you're trying to hit a particular muscle that doesn't even go over that joint. And that would be no cow poo.